And I believe that we are live. Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of Thought for Thursday that we're airing on Leveling Up the Podcast with Alethea Tucker. I am very, very happy to be here with you guys tonight. It's what many may consider a happy season, but then others may not consider it to be so happy for them, right? So, for that reason, we're doing a special episode of the podcast so that we can talk about this and find out ways that we can maneuver so that we're in a safe and healthy place during this time of the year. So, if you're coming on and you're just joining us, be sure to share this out so that we can spread the message far and wide about the importance of being able to maneuver through those times that aren't the happiest times in our lives. Excuse me. And I am so happy to have with me tonight a very dear friend of mine. And we were just talking about this. This is our third year probably talking on this topic. And her name is Monique Cox-Wade. If you go to her website, which is sistermo.com, she says that she listens, she empowers, and she transforms. Excuse me. Wow. All right. And of course, I don't see my water. Here it is. Bear with me for just a second. All right, that's a little better. Anyway, Monique Cox-Wade, she has worked as a licensed therapist and life coach for over 25 years. She holds a master's degree in social work from Howard University, and she has a heart for helping people reach their full potential by helping them gain the tools needed to be successful in all aspects of their lives. She works with people who are going through life transitions and for people who may feel that they have lost themselves in the process. Please help me in welcoming Monique Cox-Wade. Hey, Monique.
Hi, Alethea.
How are you? I'm getting choked up over here.
I know. I was like, oh no, get your water.
Get your water.
Right. But thank you for inviting me tonight to talk about this topic on grief and the holidays.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. You know, I would say in December 1st will mark, wow, I think we're coming up on 7 years since Dad passed away. And I frequently tell people that this season has always been a little heavier for me because for some reason it seems that so many of those that I love who have gone on have all gone on during this time of the year. It's always the last quarter of the year, the first month of the new year. So many memories are, of course, of them around the holidays. And then I realize they're no longer here. So sometimes it gets really hard to kind of just push through and not dwell on the fact that they're missed so much. And then just being able to figure out, well, what is it that I do? Because these people really shaped and formed the family. They shaped and formed me. And they shaped and really did kind of dictate how we spend our holidays. And for them not to be here with us, it gets a little difficult. Trying to maneuver things. So I think that's probably what started me even wanting to do this. And then I heard you speak on it. And I said then that, you know, I know that this is a topic that will definitely resonate with so many people. So I'm very happy, to have you here with me tonight.
Yeah.
And so just tell us a little bit about how it is that, you maneuver around this season. What are some of the things that you hear about and you see all the time
Yeah.
dealing with people who are dealing with trauma?
Yeah.
Holidays.
And you're right. This is a really tough time of the year because we're supposed to be happy, it's supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year. And so for people who don't necessarily feel that way, you feel like you want to isolate, or you feel like you're being a party pooper, or you're being ungrateful, and so it causes you to feel like you're out of place around this time of the year.
Yeah.
Where does that grief go? Where does that sadness go when you're around people who are expecting you to be happy, and wanting you to, do all these things that you may necessarily not, feel like doing. And so I think that it is important that we have spaces like this where we can talk about it and really normalize the fact that everybody's not going to be happy. This time of the year in itself creates a lot of memories for people,
Absolutely.
good and bad. And then when you add the layer of death or grief, that can even further complicate a lot of things. So I think it is important to talk about it, to have spaces for it, to make people feel and know that they're supported during this time. And there are things that they can do to really take care of yourself during this time. And
Yeah.
that's we're going to talk about tonight, like what are some things you can do to really take care of you during this time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it gets, and that's it. It gets hard. And sometimes, when if you're parents with younger kids, you're trying to maneuver it for yourself, you're trying to maneuver for the kids, you're trying to be strong for the other people around.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle, you lose yourself.
Yeah. And it can be very tiring,
Yeah.
And because in the midst of all of that, you're having this emotion that's really, it's a normal emotion to have, to a loss, you
Yeah.
know. And so if you don't acknowledge it, and one of the steps and one of the things I tell people during this time is give yourself the permission to acknowledge it,
Mm.
to acknowledge what you're feeling, feel what you're feeling, and give yourself that grace and the space to actually feel it,
Yes.
Be
Yes.
honest with yourself. If you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day.
Yeah.
If you're feeling sad, I'm feeling sad. If I'm angry, I'm angry. If I'm feeling resentful, I'm feeling resentful. And the thing about it is not to acknowledge it so you can stay stuck in it. It's acknowledging it so that you can then process and move through it and heal. Because it's not until we acknowledge it that we can actually begin to heal it. If we know what it is, then we can start to target it and move through it. So I tell people, be intentional about what you feel. Take the time, write it down if you have to.
Yes.
Talk to somebody, reach out to your support system. If you don't have a support system, go to a support group.
Mm.
But
Absolutely.
get to a place where you're able to express what you're feeling, and give yourself the time and space to feel it.
To feel it, to feel the feels.
Yes, feel the feels. It is not, I've said this often, grief is that's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's not a disorder. It's a feeling. It's an emotion that you have to feel. It's not a problem that you can fix.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Oh, that is so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I think that's where people really kind of start to feel helpless.
Yes.
Especially those who feel like they're always in control and they always have to be the fixer. And this really is something that you just can't fix. You can't fix the grief, the loss, the sadness that you feel,
Right.
because somebody who has been a part of your life is no longer here with you.
Exactly. And it's like, this experience, it alters your life. It changes you at your very core of who you are as a person. And so it's not something that you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm done, or it's year number 7 and I should be over it, or I've gone through all of the stages. No, it's a process, it's a journey. I saw a quote that I often quote, that grief is love. It has no place to go.
Oh, wow.
So it's that love that you had for that person,
Yes.
that now you know that I can't necessarily pick up the phone and call, or there's no more birthdays or anniversaries or holidays. And so the reality sets in that it's merely love that I have for this person. It's not a disorder. It's not
Right.
a disease.
That's good.
It's a normal emotion to loss. It's love that has no place to go.
I really like that. And that really, really summarizes it so well.
Mhm.
You know, people, when they're here, it's tangible. You can love on them. And you just feel this love, and you just really can't share it with them anymore. And it just pulls you into a place that isn't the most pleasant place to be. Not
Yeah.
at all.
No, and it doesn't feel good, and we want to shut it down. We
Mm,
want it to go away, because I mean the reality is you're not just grieving the past, and you're not just grieving the present. You're also grieving the future.
yeah, that's
You
good.
know? And so that's why when people say, well, why is it every holiday? Or why is it every birthday or every anniversary? I'm going through these emotions. Because you're also grieving that there'll be no more, seeing them grow up or seeing them grow old. There'll be no more of those times. And
Right.
so it's important in that process of allowing yourself to feel, also allowing yourself to remember.
Mm, hmm.
And I know for some right now, memories are painful,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, um, but in allowing yourself to remember, you're actually honoring more than just your loved one's death. You're honoring their life,
Mm.
because a lot of times what happens when um, when our loved one die, we remember that date.
Oh, yeah.
You remember the date. Perhaps you remember everything that led up to it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right. And sometimes what happens through the grief process, we allow those memories, we lose those memories, or we kind of shut them off because they're so painful. But allowing yourself to remember what? Remember the things that you learned from that person. Remember the conversations you had, remembering the things that you did, remembering the lessons that they taught you,
Yes.
remembering the life that they lived.
All of that.
Yeah.
All of that. And it's funny because um, I've done this with a number of my relatives who have gone on, like around their birthdays or something. There are things that I'll remember, certain occasions. But I know, and like I said 7 years. Actually, it's 6 years since my father passed away. It'll be 6 years December 1st. But starting right around November 1st, for the longest, I would live each day literally as it led up to the 1st, and then the days right after that. I remember on December 2nd, I remember we got up and we did this, and it really compounded that grief. It made it all the harder. And it's funny because you wonder, after so many, years of doing that, is it something where you're not really processing it the way that it should be processed, and you're kind of sitting in it even more? Or is that kind of natural to kind of do that?
Well, the thing is, there's no right,
Mhm.
or wrong way to grieve. I think grief is in itself is as individual as your fingerprint.
Mm,
So everybody grieves differently. Some
mm,
people express their emotions outward. Some people are more quiet and silent and reserved. But I think that that's part of the process. So what you are talking about is actually part of the process of grief, where you're reliving, you're remembering, You
Mm.
know, and it's really your way, your brain's way of trying to make sense of
Yes.
something that really doesn't make sense.
At
You
all.
know,
Mm.
like, although we know, intellectually, we talk about death, and we say we're going to die, and we even put it in our wedding vows until death
Yeah.
does do part.
Yeah.
But the reality is, nothing and nobody will ever prepare you for the finality of it,
Right.
because it's not just the death. Like I said, you're dealing with the loss,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what that means down the line as
Yes.
far as the future.
Right. Right.
So no, what you were doing is just your brain was helping you process it and make sense.
Mm. That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So tell me, what is it that you offer up to your clients? What is it? What are some things that you can do to really kind of maneuver around this season so that you can navigate the days, sometimes the hours? People have problems just struggling through the hours. What
Hmm.
do you tell them? How do you suggest they navigate?
So, one of the things I say, and it sounds very simple, but I said, don't forget to breathe.
Ah,
Don't
yeah.
forget to breathe, because what you just said, sometimes it is that hour by hour, or I'm taking it minute by minute. I'm taking it second by second.
Mhm.
So sometimes you just in those moments, you have to just give yourself time to just to breathe, you
Mm.
know.
Mhm.
And I also say take care of yourself in very practical ways, eating right, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, not too much sleep, not too little sleep, but what you're putting into your body. Because a lot of times too, in of wanting to avoid the pain of grief, we can overindulge, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sleep, because we want to make it better. We want it to go away, right? So
Right.
self-care is important during that time. So just the basics. I'm
Mhm.
like taking care of yourself, making sure that you're moving, you're getting out. You know, Sometimes, especially in grief, you don't want to go out. People
Right.
say, I don't want to go out. Where am I going to go? I told someone the other day, I just want you to go outside. I
Mm.
just want you to open your door and just look at the sky.
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
um, but just being able to get up, sometimes, making sure you're just moving your body. You may want to walk up and down your neighborhood. You don't have to have necessarily a destination, you know,
Right.
but I think that's important. So the self-care piece, moving, eating, sleeping is important. And
Mhm.
and then the other pieces too is figuring out how you want to celebrate or not this holiday or
Mhm.
these holidays, right? You may choose to want to honor your loved one's memory in some way. So often we talk about, perhaps maybe what are some of the things that they did, maybe they had certain hobbies or charities or whatever, and you want to carry that on. So for some people, they find volunteering during this time can be helpful,
Yeah.
giving back, or donating in the memory of your loved one to some organization.
Right.
Um, you don't have to celebrate the way you always did.
Mm.
So it's okay if you want to start a new tradition, or like I say, if you want to just sit this one out.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
but give yourself the grace. That's the thing. Give yourself the space and the grace to heal, because that's
Wow.
what's important. You know.
So important. So important. And
Mhm.
sometimes we like I said, in an effort to kind of keep it together, we beat ourselves up because we can't. And so that I can see where that giving yourself the space and the grace needed, or it has to be critical. Has to
Mhm.
be absolutely critical.
Yeah, and it's okay to say no.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
It's okay to say no. I'm not cooking this year, or I'm not partying this year or coming to your house or whatever other things that you don't feel like doing. It's okay.
Mhm.
And I think the bottom line is as long as you're okay with it,
Right.
you know, um, you have to do what's going to make you feel good during this time.
Mhm.
But in that, I often encourage, people to also give yourself permission to be happy.
Ah,
You
okay.
know, give yourself permission to live. Often we feel guilty if we feel happy, or we feel guilty if we laugh, or we feel guilty if we find ourselves enjoying certain things because we feel like, well, maybe I'm forgetting them, or I'm not honoring them, or
Mhm.
I'm still grieving. I'm supposed to be sad. But in this process, as you move through, you're gonna start to live again. you
Yes.
know? And the thing about grief is it doesn't go away, but as time goes on and as you're living and as you're moving through, it often allows you to be able to put other things back in, the things
Mhm.
that you may have stopped doing.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I often say it's okay to live again. It's okay to be happy. You're not forgetting them. You're just learning how to live with the loss.
With the loss. Absolutely. And you know what's funny is I have, even in coaching people who, I frequently coach people who have dealt with loss, of course. And sometimes that is exactly where they are. They feel guilty
Yeah.
because, they feel that they don't deserve to be happy. They've lived life a certain way for so long,
Hmm.
and they figure that person is no longer here, and so it shouldn't be that we're happy over the holidays. It shouldn't be that we're happy when we do vacation anymore because we always used to vacation together.
Hmm.
It's funny because I also had to come to that realization. Life just looks different now, and it's okay to go ahead and live. And I frequently say this to myself and I say this to others. It is important for you to live while you're living.
Hmm.
So don't be
That's
here
good. Yeah,
of, you know, treading water and as though you have gone on with the person who's gone.
exactly.
Think about that. They wouldn't want you to live that way anyway. They wouldn't
Mhm.
want you to live a life that really has no life to it at all. So I always stress the importance. You are yet living, so you need to live and
Mhm.
not really put yourself in a position or just kind of sit back and feel like I'm just waiting until my time comes. And there's so many people who are there.
Right, right, right. And if you're there and that's where you are in your journey, then that's okay. Because a lot of the things that we're talking about tonight, you may not be there yet.
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
but eventually you will find yourself getting to these things, and they'll make sense. So they may not make sense tonight. Don't throw it out, don't cut it off, or cut us off. What I tell people is it may not make sense today.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want you to do is I want you to put this in your bag, your toolbox,
Yes.
because it will make sense one day. And you'll be able to reach back and say, oh, okay, now I understand what they were talking about when they were saying, give yourself permission to live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. Give yourself permission to be happy and to
Yes.
live the life that you really deserve to live.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So, how is it, for example, what do you suggest people do who have just been so stuck in tradition? And the tradition has involved loved ones who have gone on, and they need to establish new traditions. What was like the first step in even getting to that point and moving in that direction?
Well, I think you have to be at the place where first you're ready
Mm-hmm.
to establish new traditions. And because in establishing new traditions, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do away with the old. You may incorporate some of the old with the new, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that that's the first step. And then I think second step would be just kind of asking yourself, what is it that you want now going forward? Perhaps you did things that way because that's the way they wanted to do it. Maybe it wasn't necessarily the way you wanted to do it. So
Exactly.
now you get to say, okay, what is it that I really would like to do?
What do I want to do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what do you want to do? And again, you don't have to totally discard what you did, but you may incorporate a little bit, um,
Mm-hmm.
or you may decide, I want to start something completely new. And then you go back to asking yourself, what does it look like? You
Right.
know, what would that look like for me? Maybe I want to go on a trip
Mm-hmm.
instead of being at home,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. But I think
Absolutely.
you decide, you have to be in the place where first that's where you are, and you're ready to make those moves.
Great.
Nobody can tell you when that happens. I think a lot of this is that you will know as you're moving through the process.
When it is that you are supposed to do, when you're supposed to make things different.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, when is it? What about for those who need extra help? When is it that you really kind of sit back and figure out, okay, I need some professional help with processing, not just maneuvering through this time of the year, but obviously I just need some help with processing grief.
Right.
What are the signs? When do you recognize that?
And so I think that help is at different levels, right? You may need help. Your help may come from going to a support group,
Mm-hmm.
and finding your community there. Your help may come from having a supportive network of people or friends, right? For other people, it may mean that I want to go and talk to a counselor
Mm-hmm.
because maybe there's some areas that I feel like I'm just stuck in.
Yes.
One of the when people come in to me, what I've found a lot of times they're stuck right in that anger. And so
Mm-hmm.
what happens with the anger, or it starts to kind of spill over in other areas of their life. So, I'm angry with other people. I'm angry about the loss, but I'm placing it on other people, so that's,
Yes.
emotion, right?
Right.
And so I think at that point, sometimes people feel like, okay, it's starting to really affect other areas of my life where, either my work or my other relationships, and I can't really get out of this. And so it's okay to come and talk to somebody, and just sometimes just venting and purging
Mm-hmm.
just allows you to just kind of feel a little bit lighter, lighten that load.
That's
So
right.
so that you can begin to, handle what's coming, in life, because life continues, right? you know
Absolutely.
Life happens. Even though this person is gone, life still goes on. So sometimes seeking professional help just to, figure out how can I navigate this next area of my life, because it looks different. And sometimes looking different, it can be scary. So I often say, if you feel like it's starting to, keep you from really functioning in other areas of your life, then seek help. Help is out there. And one other thing, I'll share too, if you're at home and during the holidays it gets rough for you, reach out. 988, the crisis line. It's a crisis line. It's not just for people who are suicidal, because I think some people say, well, it's the suicide hotline, but no, it's the crisis line. So if you're having a rough time or a rough day and you just need to call somebody, call the crisis line and be able to talk, to
Mhm.
somebody, and they have counselors who are able to listen, you know,
Right.
to you. So that the help is out there. you don't have to go through this alone. I know you feel alone, but you're not alone.
Awesome, awesome. And yeah, it's good that you mentioned the crisis line, because you're right. People think that they don't think that it is some place that they can call to have somebody, rescue them, um, when they need some support, mental support, when they really feel as though, um, they're just not in a good mental place. And
Yeah,
so I'm glad you brought up that helpline where people can call in.
yeah.
And I'd be interested in knowing what statistics even look like around the holidays. I bet they get lots of calls, you know.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
They
this is yeah. Like I said, this time of the year brings up a lot of emotions,
Mhm.
not just grief, you know.
Right.
And it's also, it's a very sad time of the year, like we said, for a lot of people. So, you know, suicides tend to start to increase
Mhm.
around this time of the year, you
Mhm.
know, because, people begin to feel hopeless. And so that's another, that's a real red flag. If in this walk, in this grief journey, you start to feel hopeless, or
Mhm.
you start to feel like I just can't do this another day. I just want to die.
Mhm.
There is help.
Mhm.
Don't lose your hope. Reach out, talk to somebody, so
Yeah.
they can kind of help you navigate that rough spot that you're in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Monique, this has been good. It's always good every year when we do it. And I really have heard from people who've said, this has really been helpful to me. People who really just need help in that navigation.
Yes.
Because no matter how strong they are, how capable they are, how smart they are, like you were just saying, grief really knows no color. It doesn't. There's no respecter of persons. And
This is
people,
a journey we're all going to walk on.
yes, yes,
Whether you want to or not, this is a journey that we all would take because it's a part of life
yes,
and it's a part of love.
and it's a part of love. I'm gonna remember that quote.
Hmm.
I'm gonna remember
Yeah,
that.
when I read that one time, it just stuck with me.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So this has been wonderful. Oh my goodness. We're gonna start wrapping up here. Are there any resources? And this is something that I always do
Mhm,
when we are ending, our podcast here. Are
mhm.
there any resources that you would recommend
Okay.
for processing the holidays, for navigating the holidays, or just for navigating grief? What are some things that you recommend?
Okay. So, of course, Grief Share
Mm-hmm.
is a group, I think it's nationwide, that I've heard very good things about. I've had people go through it. I had someone tell me they went through it twice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a nationwide, group that you can kind of plug into around this time of the year. You may have some churches that are also
Yes, that's what I've heard
offering
of
some
it. Mhm.
grief support groups. So reach out to your churches to find out, if they have counselors there that would be willing to even do a talk, you
Yeah.
know, to the church. There's a book that I've come to really love. It's called "It's Okay That You're Not Okay,"
I like
by,
that.
Megan Devine.
Okay.
It's okay that you're not okay, and she talks about grief and how to navigate grief, just in general. So those are some resources, and of course, if you want to reach out to a counselor, go through your insurance companies. You can go through Psychology Today, and you can find you a counselor that you can sit down and help you walk through this journey of grief.
Awesome. Awesome. Through Psychology Today. And I'm going to look up that book for sure. It's something that's wonderful to just have as a resource, it sounds
Yes,
like.
yes, it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what was the author's name again?
Megan Devine, Devine,
Megan Devine.
M E GAN, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll definitely look that up.
Mhm.
Well, Monique, I'll also we'll end out by doing this. Is there anything that you want to say to encourage the audience as we end this segment?
Well, I would just want to encourage everybody that, we know that, grief is hard. It's a part of life. The reality is the holidays are going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get through it. You can get through it. And I often tell people this: as long as you have hope, hold on to your hope. That even if it's just a little bit, hold on to your hope. And the other thing is, don't forget to breathe.
Yeah.
Take it one day at a time. Take it step by step if you have to. If you got to sit down and catch your breath, then do whatever you need to do, but
Mm-hmm.
don't give up.
Absolutely. Don't give up. That's the key because life is worth the living.
Yes.
Life
Yes.
is worth the living.
Yes.
Thank you so, so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Alethea.
Yes, yes. I know that we will do it again.
Yes.
And I know that what we have said is definitely going to help somebody who is in a tight spot right now. As you said,
Yeah.
somebody who's stuck,
Yeah.
who is trying to figure out how it is that they can maneuver
Yeah.
through this season. So thank you so much for your words and your information here that's really gonna hit some hearts and some souls that really need it.
Yes.
All right.
All
So
right.
hold on for just a second. I'm going to come back and talk to you. But I do want to go ahead and end our podcast. Again, I want to thank Monique for being here today. Um, Something that we do every year around this time because it is possible to navigate the holidays. It's possible to navigate this season when it's really not the happiest time of the year. So listen, thank you for listening to us. I want you to go out and be confidently yourself, knowing that your thumbprint is one that is needed. Go out and make a difference. Touch someone, touch something, and make it better. Be confidently and boldly yourself. And who you are, right where you are, is just enough. Thanks so much.